Hello, Board Game Shenanigans here. This particular video will be kind of a ramble type rant style video where I'm just going to list off some things about a topic, and the topic today is FOMO, or fear of missing out, as people like to call it. And I've decided to make this video because I see a lot of people online use this term in board gaming, and I've kind of thought about it for a while and thought a lot of people like to explain it in a way, and I don't really agree with a lot of people how they talk about this and how they phrase it and how they think about it. Not to single anyone out in particular, I think I've seen it on many different channels, much large channels say it. I'm sure from the Dice Tower and Board Game Co. and people like that. They all mentioned it at some point, I'm sure. So that's just my general going off. It's like everyone knows about it, everyone talks about it, and I don't know where the term originated in board gaming. I know that it is generally a psychology style term where it's come from elsewhere, and people have these thoughts about it where it's like a negative kind of trait that you can get and how you see the world, and it's not a positive thing in the world, I think, in general. But in the term of board gaming, it's kind of referred to as there's a new game coming out, and it's about you, should you buy it or not. That's generally where it is. And it's like the FOMO, where they call it, is where, well, should you back it on Kickstarter now? Should you buy it right now when it's just come out? That's the type of mentality around it. And it's not like the way the psychology side of the term actually developed. It was more about you seeing your friends online on Facebook and things like that and starting to feel left out, and that's your fear of missing out. That's where it's really come from. It's not really about things you buy, but it has kind of been applied to that as time goes on. It was certainly applied to video games where people had like loot boxes in video games, and they did studies saying, oh well, you've got the terrible skins because you didn't buy any loot boxes, so we're going to bully you for that. It's kind of that type of thing kind of happened with school kids, where like school kids would be buying like Fortnite boxes, getting all these new skins, and then it's like they were bullying the poor kids who couldn't afford it and the parents couldn't afford it for them. So there's definitely different applications of FOMO. I think that there's definitely, it does affect people psychologically, and it's quite closely linked to depression and anxiety and different mental issues that you can have really as a human being. So in like the term of board gaming, people are kind of maybe tongue-in-cheek talking about it. It's not as a negative thing talked about. It's more like people joke around about it a lot more. They're like, ah yeah, FOMO, don't buy this new game. Hey, look, you've got all these other games that you've got to play. Don't fall for the FOMO. And it's generally how I kind of see it in board game. It's not very they dig deep into it and what we as humans actually are and how we actually think. And I think that's why I'm kind of wondering about it. And I think that part of it is, I think some people, they come out and go, well, you shouldn't get this new game because you yourself have 15 other games that you've not finished that are campaign games, so don't buy the new campaign game, type of thing. And when I hear that sort of thing, I don't think that's a reason not to get a new game. I feel that's not a reason to knock a new game. That's a reason of your personal self why you should just stop buying games for a bit, play through your ones you've got, and come back later, type of thing. And I think that in general, there's this kind of culture thing where we have people on YouTube continually making videos, people on other websites doing videos, showing off new games, talking about preview copies, talking about brand new games they've got in. And when people are doing that, it's like driving the engagement with these new games and what companies are making, because you're continually talking about the fresh new hot stuff, and they're getting their views on those videos. They're doing it for a reason. They want to get their videos seen, so it's an obvious thing to do. And I've done things like that on my channel already. I've made videos about current Kickstarters simply because I'm interested in those games and I wanted to make a video about it, talking about it, and that's kind of the gist of it, really. I knew those videos will probably get more views because it's hard to start off on YouTube without making some videos that actually will get some traction and people watching them. So, to go general with this, I feel that FOMO itself is just something personal to you. It's a personality trait, and I do think that can be primarily negative, but I think that it's something that most human beings have. I think it's part of that addictive style of personality where human beings always want to get something new. They always want to collect and hoard and gather things. Just like we've evolved to gather, we now gather whatever we can find. So some people gather stamps, some people gather coins, some people gather board games, some people gather video games, some people gather movies. It's everything that we as human beings have been. We just continually hoard things up together ourselves and just try and be into something, really. Like, that's our part of our personality almost, really. We have this what we enjoy, we make that as part of ourselves, and I think that's generally how board gamers are. They are attached to board games now. It's part of themselves, so they continually want to buy new and play what they've got, and then buy more and more and more, and it doesn't really end. It's more just an escape in part of their life. That's their collection. That's what they are focusing on in life as a hobby, and that's generally how we are. So FOMO in itself, it doesn't have to be a negative on its own. It's more like how far you take it. If you're buying games you with the intention to play them and then you never play them, that is when you're becoming a hoarder. That's where you go in a bit far, because you're never touching the games that you're getting, even though you plan to. And then if you have FOMO in the other way, where you have to keep looking at a game, keep focus on videos, and then you're looking over the game over and over again, tossing and turning where to get it. That's when it's becoming unhealthy, because then you just keep looking online, seeing if you want to buy it, and instead of doing something more productive, you're too busy trying to decide if you want to buy a new game. And then you have people, it's like you have YouTubers, they talk about games, and when that happens, people might want to try and imitate people online. They go, well, this person owns 500 board games, why can't I? And I think that kind of stuff happens quite often. It's like, you want people try and copy what they see, the old kind of saying, if your friends told you to jump off a bridge, would you do it, type of thing. And people actually do fall into that sort of thing. They think, well, I have to be like with the people, I want to fit in, and that's fear of missing out as well, really. You want to try and be a part of that same in-group with everyone else, because everyone else is buying these games and playing these games and talking about these games. So that it's kind of trying to push you into that, because and this is the part of being on the internet now. It's like you can see what thousands or millions of other people are doing, so you want to be part of that club. So when you start seeing things online now, you see, oh, well, this YouTuber's talking about this game, and all these other people saying it's amazing, so I want to be part of the club, I'm going to buy it myself. And I think that's why the internet is being such a problem, where this concept of FOMO has been created through increasing communication through the internet. So now people can see and shop online and browse and see all these board games they could buy. And it's not like going into a shop, because then you'd have to carry them all home. It's more like, well, Amazon, 1-day delivery, must buy 10 board games, and then they all come in one big box, and then you're in your house and you've not made the room for them, because you just kind of didn't realize how big it was until they got in front of your eyes. So there's quite a lot more into it, really. It's like a very deep topic to talk about FOMO. It's like, it covers a lot of things in board games, because it is just part of how we as human beings operate. We have to go in and spend money, and we want to get things and new and always be on the new stuff. And it also kind of falls in with another term, which is cult of the new, which people say. I don't know where it came from, but it's been around for quite a bit now in board games. So when people talk about that, they're talking about people who are always just playing the hot new game. They're always buying new games, and maybe also forgetting about the old games too. It's always about what's hot and new, and people do that all the time. They'll be top 10 of the year, and then people say 10 games they got this year and play them. And personally myself, I never even get around 10 games a year. I'm always waiting for a few Kickstarters here or there, and I get some games like my birthday and Christmas type of thing. I don't buy my games every week, buy games every month. I usually take long breaks between buying games because I've got plenty of games to play, and there's plenty I can still go through, so I don't get sucked into always wanting the new hot game because give it time, really. That's why I usually go with it. Sometimes you don't know if a game's good until much later, because people will say, oh, it's the number one game of all time, and then they do another list next year, and, oh, where was it? Well, it's like 80. Well, what happened? Well, I just didn't play it all year. Well, that's because you were just playing it because it was new and never really you got kind of tired of it quite quickly, so it didn't stand the test of time. So it was never a proper quality experience. You just kind of said it was to begin with. And is that marketing? Is that they've been told to say that? Or sometimes is it just they've been buying into a lot of hype and now they think differently because, it's died off because, they shouldn't rush into an opinion about a new game. I would say also that the fear of missing out is probably also associated with gambling and taking risks, because people do this and they spend loads and loads of money on a brand new Kickstarter that's out, or a brand new game that they don't really know about. They're just kind of taking that first dive, the first plunge into it to see. And it reminds me a bit of the Squid Game TV series, where you've got all these people who are down the life, they're always gambling, or they have these different addictions in their life where they just want to try and make a quick buck, quick money. And that's what I feel about people on board gaming. They're like, well, I'm going to take a risk, I'm going to buy this new Kickstarter, I'm going to start gambling on this game. And I think that's why the cult of the new FOMO, it all kind of blends into one big gambling issue, where there's a personality trait there where people are going to just dive in and just take a risk on board gaming. And that's another thing with Squid Game as well, is that in the show there's a point where all the characters have an opportunity to withdraw and not take part in the games to win all the money, but then all of them do come back and take part. And I think that's generally how these FOMO and Kickstarter works. People come turn down at the moment, but then later down the line they're still going to throw the money at the game and buy it, or buy a late pledge or something. So you got to be careful with how you decide to spend your money, because it is part of a gamble to start, but then you could also have that still same addictive personality where you want to just buy more and get every hot new game. And just because you might have missed out at the time, it doesn't mean that you made the wrong decision. And to come round to it, it's generally FOMO, in my opinion, it is a personality trait. So the people who are always up to wanting to buy the next new hot thing, and they buy loads of Kickstarters, loads of board games every month, every week maybe, those type of people, if they're not doing it with board games, they're probably doing it with something else, or they will do it with something else if they weren't a board game fan. And you can see that with a lot of people who overeat food, are always eating food, always out for the new takeaways and the new fast food, and they can see a new Big Mac ad on the TV and go, oh, I'm going to go to McDonald's and get a new burger, because people can get suckered into the new advertising, and also they're already got this addictive personality. And when it comes to addiction, board games is not the worst thing in the world you can have, but it's bad for your money, really. It's going to be a lot of money you're putting away, but it's not as bad as gambling, it's not as bad as drugs. So in general, it's not the worst thing in the world you can have, but it's something that will start to affect negatively if you don't keep it in control, and you start doing things that are not a good decision, like taking out a loan or using your credit card to buy board games. That's when you shouldn't be doing that. That's where you've gone a bit too far. You need to cycle it back, because you need to be able to run the rest of your life too. And when it comes to the concept where people are like, well, if I don't buy it now, I'll never get it because it'll either cost too much in the future, or I want everything now because I'm getting a good deal because it's a Kickstarter and they'll give me all these extras. But in general, those type of things, there will be ways to get a lot of these things later, especially if it is a good game, because good games come back round eventually, I'm sure, because anytime there's a good Kickstarter, they'll do another one, and you can get it the next time round. So they have to kind of be careful with that. I think that some people assume immediately that, oh, this is never going to be around again, but I think that it's rarer in those cases. I think it's more that's when a game isn't actually that good, or actually it's like a license where it's been put in temporarily, and a license-based game might not come back, but it could come back in another form maybe. But in general, that's where it's a riskier move where you might miss out. And it's just not healthy to base your personal ways you buy board games based on what you see online. And I think that's because a lot of these YouTube channels, they do get the review copies, and I know they do say that, but when you start seeing how many games they own, and you start thinking, well, I could be like that too, but you got to think that a lot of that stuff you got for free, a lot of that stuff they have monetization on their channels, which pays for some of the games they got. They have Patreon accounts. There's different things in mind there where, you know, just because what you see online there, it doesn't mean that you can replicate that, and doesn't mean you have to. Just because other people are like that online doesn't mean you have to have that fear of missing out, because you don't have to be like them. You can sell the games you have, you can play with other people, you can go to board game stores. There's other alternatives available. So that's what you should make up if you think that you want to try these new games. Don't rush in and buy it yourself. But part of FOMO in the psychological sense, it does associate with people who want to have this high social status, and also people who are very competitive. And I think with board gamers, that does kind of fit what they are, because when you have a lot of people online, you know, they want to be known, they want to be have a high social status in the board game space, and also they might want to be more popular. And I think also with competitiveness, definitely this is a very common trait board gamers have, because it's all about competing and winning the game. So those type of traits, people who have the fear of missing out issue, that's the same type of people. So when you think about that way, then board gamers are the prime target to start fear of missing out on things. And it can include talking to other people and being a part of the community, and also wanting to just buy new games to be like others. And people who are suffering from FOMO, they do generally have an increased anxiety and depression. And I think that that can still fall into the board game definition of it, where, you know, people feel bad if they don't buy a game in time, and then will regret it because they'll be like, well, I should have got this game earlier. But all of that, it's just showing more that trying to be into games that way, it is part of your own mental health. So it's something you need to try and reduce and try and control, because being someone who's buying games all the time, always over and getting the new stuff, that's someone who does need to consider their life a bit more and make sure they stay healthy, because you can't be worrying about what other people are doing. I think it's more about your personal self. And, you know, if you think about it over, you know, it's not the end of the world if you miss out on a game, because there's other games you can buy. There's always a new game that you can play. You will never play every game that exists. There's that many games now that you'll never get through every single one and never own them all, and you'll never run out. So there's always new stuff coming as well. So you never will run out. There's always going to be something around the corner that you might enjoy even more. And missing out on one game or two, it won't change your life drastically. So you have to think about it a bit more positively, that you've got so much spoilt for choice in board gaming that even if you saw a game that, you know, you might have liked and you missed out, and you're not going to be able to get it again for a cheap price anymore, it's not going to change your life that much, because it's just a game in the end. So to round it all off, I think that board gaming, just like any other form of media, can make you more like addicted. It can make you more attached to that form of media, which is board games or any other form of gaming as well. And when you are attached to gaming in this way, that's when it can start becoming more unhealthy, because you can't treat board games like it's more important than it is, because what it should be is an escape, and that escape is to sit down, play board games, play with people, you know, your friends, your family, and to get away from the rest of the world, really. It's something there that you can sink your time into and forget about the badness in the world and focus on the goodness, which is playing games. And that's where things like FOMO can start to drive the hobby and make you feel negative about it, because you shouldn't be over hyper focused on new board games that come out and board games online. You should more drift it away and take a break, because just because things are on the internet, it doesn't mean it matters. It doesn't mean you need to stick with it. You can take a break from YouTube. You can take a break from watching videos. You can take a break from looking at Kickstarters. You don't have to keep focusing on it, seeing board games day in, day out. If you feel it's, draining your wallet so much, if you feel that you're obsessing too much over it, if you feel that, you might need just to take a little break, play the games you've got already, because, the ones you've got, they aren't going anywhere. You still got them on your shelf. And if you don't like them, sell them. If you like them, keep playing them. It doesn't matter what other people think on the internet. And it doesn't matter if you might be disappointed with what you got in the end. You can still sell it on and give it to someone else who might like it. So that's about it, really. Just a bit of a little ramble about FOMO. And generally, it is a real concept, FOMO. It's something that kind of persists in any form of media, and especially in the 21st century where we have the internet. It's quite a common phrase, and it's creeping up in other industries as well. It's creeping up in board games. And if you have any thoughts on it, please share it in the comments. Please like, subscribe, and share the video. Thank you very much for watching. Bye.